Yes, Abayomi, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Paul. Nice to see you here again.
Thank you.
Yeah, last lecture was about emergency preparedness and business continuity. And the lecturer made us to understand that emergency preparedness and business continuity issues are issues that are at a strategic level. They are not issues that you discuss during operations, as in they should have been catered for long ago in the strategic plans. And one key thing that I took away from the class was this event threat analysis, how we can analyze different threats that can affect our facilities and the measures that we take to address them. Because the analysis will make us to quantify the threats and find a way to reduce the threats.
Super. That's a very good one. Thank you. All right, who's going next? Yes, I need more feedback on the last step, please.
Good evening, sir. Good evening,
Good evening.
Sir. Yeah.
Joshua, right?
No, Afis.
Hafiz, okay, go ahead, Hafiz.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Welcome back, sir. Last class was about emergency preparedness and continuity of business. So what I was able to learn in that class was the focal point of what is called peers. What exactly we have to look out for in ensuring that business continues in case there are emergencies. And the lecturer made us to understand that there's something that is called peers, which is you focus on the people, focus on the environment, focus on the assets of the business, and then the reputation of the business, such that none of these areas suffers in the event of a disaster. Then he also made us to understand that there are certain groups that work together when it comes to emergency preparedness and business continuity. And he mentioned that there should be a communication group who will be in charge of communicating and directing people. He also mentioned that there should be a group that is called search and rescue group. That is to look at those who are present in the premises when there's a disaster, and then that group is supposed to look out for everybody that is supposed to be in so that they can be rescued. He also mentioned that there should be a group called the muster and the marshalling group, which are these people that are to direct people and muster them together to have a head count of who is present and who is absent when disaster happens. And then we also mentioned that there's a medical and emergency response team. These are the people that are responsible for to take charge of if there's any injury or anything that requires medical, to give sort of a first aid to people that are there before they are finally taken care of to a larger facility, to a larger health facility. So that's what I've been able to take away from that class, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Well done. Fantastic. All right. Anyone else?
Okay. Hello, sir. This
yes.
Good evening, sir.
This
is Joshua.
All right, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. So my take home from the last class, it was actually an impactful class, and was on emergency preparedness and business continuity. And one of the things he said was that as an FM, you should be able to identify potential hazards in the built environment. Okay, what are the hazards that are likely to come up, and find a way to mitigate those hazards. Okay, one of the examples he gave was, okay, if there is no water, okay, what will happen? Okay, water, this borehole could spoil. Okay, what am I going to do to make sure that water doesn't, the facility is not void of water? Another thing he also said was the example of fuel, diesel. So at least you should have 3 to 4 diesel suppliers, so that we you're not stick with one and one disappoint. Like, so they said there's no excuse as an FM. You shouldn't give excuse for failure. So you should be able to see the failure ahead and mitigate it. That's to ensure that business continues. Thank you, sir.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. That was well carried by the few of you who have spoken so far. All right, so with that, I would like to move into today's part. Today we're looking at procurement and contract management. Procurement is a systematic process by which an organization reaches formal contracts for the purchase of goods and or services. It is different from purchasing, which is a specific buying activity or the placing of orders. Abayami, do you have a question to ask?
No, sir.
Okay, because I see your hand is still up. All right, thank you. Procurement is a process. Procurement is not purchasing. If you want to just purchase, which is the act of buying, you just go and buy. But if you want to have an agreement or a contract in place for a purchasing to be implemented, you use a procurement process. It maximizes cost effectiveness and achieve the best value for money, protect unwary would-be purchasers, conform with all applicable laws and regulations, treat all prospective suppliers and their representatives fairly and impartially, reduce procurement process costs and ensure continuous improvement, adhere to organizational policies such as sustainability, diversity, equality, and workforce issues, undertaken in accordance with high professional standards and ethics, organized in an effective, structured way and is embedded in the organization, develop management information and the use of performance measures of procurement. The first reason we want to do procurement is to ensure that there is efficiency and that we as a buying organization, we are getting value for our money. We are not wasting money. We are not buying things that we are not getting value from. That's the first thing we want to achieve. We want to ensure too that we are fair, equitable to all the bidders who we invite. We don't want to waste anybody's time. Okay? We want to treat everybody equally. So we give information, the same volume, the same quantity of information, the same way, the same channel to everybody at the same time. In fact, when we are doing procurement processes, we even use the same response. One person can ask a question and we'll answer to that question to everybody, so that everybody are on the same page in terms of organizational information they've gotten about the bidding that we are delivering. And then we use procurement as a control mechanism to ensure that all our organization's processes, policies, and procedures are being adhered to. So if we have standards and we have policies and procedures for different considerations like sustainability, energy efficiency, and the rest, it is during procurement we implement those. How? We make sure that those policies become embedded in the specification we give for the various procurement activities that we take on. And because purchasing, procurement, there's all kinds of possibility for fraud, all kinds of issues that can come out of just that whole process of buying goods and services. Procurement helps to provide some level of transparency and helps us to build in ethical control into our process. So we're no longer trying to abuse our position in the organization. We are not trying to take advantage of our organization. We're not trying to create benefits for ourselves through the process of procurement. And then as we implement procurement, we create a record trail, a documentary trail of what we are investing our money in. Procurement helps us to document, first of all, we create the value, the reason we want to do that procurement, what we're going to get from it. Then we go into the market, we do the bidding process, we get the right installation or deployment done. And then we now have a base for continuous monitoring of that aspect, so that we can keep comparing to see whether it is meeting our needs or not. The whole idea behind procurement is to ensure that we get value for money. So getting the right product at the right time, at the right price is what we call value for money. This is closely aligned to best value. When you define right product, it means you write your specification of expectations from that product correctly. When you define right time and right price, it means you are also focusing on the lowest possible price and the quickest delivery opportunity you can get for that item. A good blend of these three is what we call value for money. And now, your thinking in procurement should not always be about a particular asset, a material, and equipment. No. You should think your way back into your organization and ask yourself, why are we even doing this procurement? That's why we reveal our objective, we reveal what we are trying to get from it. So an AC is not what we are looking for, it's comfort cooling. A generator is not what we are looking for, it's power to power our assets and equipment. That's the kind of mindset we're talking about. If you're able to think back enough to understand why, you can now be open to all the options that are possible for you to meet that requirement. So whether you want to eventually go and buy an equipment to help you get that utility, whether you want to go and lease an equipment to give you that utility, or you don't even want to have any business with the equipment at all. You want to have a third party provide that utility from their own equipment, becomes options that you can consider because you have done an analysis. You know exactly what you want, and it is what you want that you are trying to head for at the lowest possible cost possible. So we talk about why do we want to purchase. It to provide us more flexibility, which means we can use it when we like. We don't have to be booking with a lease company. Property can appreciate in value and may provide a buffer during times of inflation, especially landed property. Many of the organizations that build their organizations on property that they own, they have a strong portfolio of assets that increase in value over time and eventually become the balance sheet or asset base with which they remain stable in business. They don't ever go under. Little wonder why companies like McDonald's today is considered as one of the biggest real estate companies because of their strategy to buy the land on which they build their restaurants right from time. And this has made a huge impact in their business. They have become one of the forever businesses today because they have invested in acquiring property. So that is one way to look at purchasing. Owning our own makes a lot of sense if we're thinking of it in terms of balance sheet and asset value. Home property life cycle costs are generally less than leasing. But what does leasing give? It helps you preserve capital. Why do I want to spend 20 million, 15 million buying a generator when I can actually have someone else bring the generator and give me power of 3 million, 2 million at a time, which is exactly what I need. I don't have to tie capital down, especially if I don't have the means to tie such capital down. It offers agility. which means I can accept a large scope, I can reduce my scope, I can respond to sudden increase or decrease because it's not, I don't have to acquire the assets, I don't have to own the assets. Leasing provides state-of-the-art facilities. If I'm leasing on a year-to-year basis, if there's a new equipment the next year, I can go for that equipment from the vendor that has it. I don't have to be stuck to an old equipment because if I own it, I'll have to be stuck with it for as many years as possible, right? Even if it becomes obsolete, as far as it's functional, I'll keep using it. Leasing provides the ability to negotiate terms. It's also very important that we are able to negotiate terms. That's one of the things that leasing does. When the economy is one way or the other, we can decide to scale down, change the terms of engagement, and so on and so forth. Your decision whether to purchase or lease should be based on several considerations: cost of alternative decisions, your decisions related cash and tax position. If your decision is very, very rich in terms of cash flow, you can decide to always buy, right? There's no need to be leasing because you don't know what to do with the cash anyway, there's surplus cash. But if the decision has to be dealing with financing costs, having to deal with borrowing of money to operate his business, why would you want to borrow money and tie it down in an equipment? So the best thing is to lease and get security for the period you borrowed the money to cover. Whether it's preferable for you to own or lease property, there's this balance sheet configuration. How much of it do you own? How much of it have you leased? Asset risk management factors. There is a factor of risk for every asset owned by any individual organization, right? There are holding costs. There are other maintenance and licensing fees and costs that you don't have to be maintaining if you don't own it. And then anticipated time of use. If you're going to use something for just a short while, maybe a lifting or a cradle equipment, scaffolding equipment that can take your people up to do maintenance at height, once in 6 months. Does it make sense to own the entire equipment or to leave it just when you need it? Those are some of the things that we talk about when we are dealing with procurement decisions, whether to own or to whether to buy or to lease. The same kind of consideration comes in when you are trying to decide whether to do things in-house, employ staff, keep them up, equip them, give them materials and tools to deliver the service in-house, or whether you want to take that service to a third party. If you take it in-house, you retain direct and complete control. There is no conflict of loyalty or perceived conflict of loyalty between the organization and the team providing the service because they don't have two bosses. Right? It's easy to have full control of those who are doing the job if you have everything in-house and they're all your staff. They have a sense of belonging as being the owners of the job they are doing. Some limitations of in-house service provision include management unlikely to be knowledgeable. Especially for facility management, most organizations will not have the knowledge skills in management to be able to provide their services in-house. So there's that knowledge gap. So a banker, a banking director, for example, probably doesn't have that knowledge base or skills to handle facilities. So probably want to trust it for that reason. Specialist training is unlikely to be available. Taking the bank example again, they'll know all the training to give to bankers, but FM is not their core business. So what kind of training do they give to FM? The work may be carried out when core business management and supervision is not on site. Recruitment and absence cover can be a major problem. So with contractors, you can just say, make sure somebody is there every day, and they'll make sure somebody is there every day. They've been used to the contract. But if you have to employ people and you have somebody who's going to be there every day, you probably have to have more people. And if you manage that number to have one person in place, You may have issues with that person not being available, being ill, being on holiday, and the rest. That cover will not be there because you don't have that extra opportunity to go and source for in-house employees just to meet with a peak demand or a missed opportunity with the worker not being able to be there. And then there are additional costs, which will be hidden costs. Cost to companies includes a lot of hidden costs that is not obvious looking at it on the surface. All you can say as a cost to company is mostly direct cost. How much is it paid as salary? But then there are other costs like the cost of providing space and service, providing benefits, providing bonuses, providing other employee perks that are not noticeable. You know, everything as simple as providing the means with which they enjoy certain extra privileges will cost the organization. If you outsource, that's outsourced. You don't have that in. So reducing headcount, not having too many people on your payroll as an organization reduces your risk, reduces your compliance requirements. Reduce costs. That may not be an obvious reason because you are thinking if I outsource the service, there's a likelihood that the new contractor is going to make a profit, right? So he's going to make a profit. He's not looking like a middleman, and as such, my cost should go up, but doesn't always follow. The reality is that he knows how to get it cheaper, knows how to get it better. He uses economies of scale to provide these services across several customers and can actually deliver at a lower cost than I can provide to myself. Then I can concentrate on the core business. It's one reason why we want to outsource. So that I just know that I don't have to go and start any additional skills, management abilities, and managing facility systems. Buying the provider's core business. The service provider, the FM companies, their core business is what? Their core business is facility management. So you are paying them to do their core business for you, serve you with it. Acquire expertise not available in-house. Access to expertise. A lot of the expertise coming from contractors that you are able to learn from it. You are able to grab it as you work with them. Improve cost flexibility, resource flexibility, people and costs. You can decide to stop and scale down quite easily. Career opportunity for FM staff. The FM staff in service companies, they have a higher chance of rising to C-suite compared to FM staff in demand organizations. And then access to investments or systems that will require capital that cannot be justified in the host organization. That's things you can just go and buy and keep. But with the FM companies or the service providers, you can tap into it. Free of management time to focus on strategic issues and plan. So let's look at setting the stage for outsourcing. You can't outsource a problem you don't understand. You can't just call a vendor to provide you a solution so that you can pay. You have to first be able to understand your issues, what you are trying to get, what this service you are trying to demand for. What is the scope of it? What is the objective? What are the key attributes that you are trying to, you have to find a way to define them. These are organization situations. This is what we are currently experiencing. And this is the scope of services we are looking for as the solution to our current situation. You have to start from there. You have to document everything from your assets register, solution assessment. You have to understand the facility to that point where you have data, identify special demands, identify high priority services and risk assessment of those areas, consideration of flexibility and variability in demand, peak and off-peak demand, management implications, and bid evaluation criteria, whether hard and soft measures and comparison of all costs, not just the lowest price. So in essence, you are doing a lot of front-end work before you even get out to get vendors or contractors to start looking into what you want them to do. The procurement process starts with someone identifying the need. That could be the FM committee. Planned activities, planned inspections, that could come from the clients or building users from the observations of defects, requesting the FM to fix or supply things. We come from management mandate, from strategy, so it's FM strategy, FM maintenance, FM inspections, the clients, building users, the management focus. All of these can bring opportunities for you to need to do a procurement. But what does this bring? It brings a problem, a need, and opportunity. You now convert that into a document that we call the request. The request includes a description of the issue, the problem, the gap analysis, the objective we want to achieve, a description of the solution we hope will solve the problem, a scope for that solution, and a pre-qualification criteria who can provide that solution, as well as an evaluation criteria. When we see the solution has been provided, how do we rate the proposals that are coming in? You do all of this as front-end work and submit to procurement. Procurement finalizes by adding all those boilerplate, procedures, policies into it. They put the contract template in place. At this point, most of the information that goes into it is already coming from you. You already have it, and you've given it to them. They just review the request. They create a draft contract. This is very important. This is not happening in most procurement processes right now. A draft contract that shows exactly what will be signed up to if whoever is being talked to wins this bid. Before you now go into the market to get market assessment, at this point to generate your in-house pricing, and then you find bidders who can bid for it based on the pre-qualification criteria that you have set, and then you select them, use that criteria to select them, and then you hand over to them the draft contract, the service specification, the evaluation criteria that you have developed. And this is what they will use to put together their bid and submit to you. That bid coming back, of course, the process is running this whole stage now. Now, the process of evaluating the bid may not necessarily need to concern you, because when you're preparing the request, you created pre-qualification criteria. We guided them on how to supply market assessments and solicit bids, who to bring in, who qualifies to bring in. You did pre-qualification criteria. Then you did a bid evaluation criteria. If the bids are submitted, these are the things that are going to have the highest weight. These are the things that we use as criteria to assess who understands the job and who will deliver it better. You give them that. So they use those to evaluate the bids that have been brought in, and they get to the point where they award the contract to the person who meets your bid evaluation criteria. So whether you are there or you are no longer there with procurement, whoever they find, based on the information you have supplied at the early stage of the procurement process, will be best for you, will be good for you. You no longer have that issue of they're giving you the wrong person. You don't know how they found somebody who came in, and that person doesn't know what he's doing. Because you made sure by the work you have done that they don't have anybody who doesn't know what he's doing in the list that will be considered. And one of the things we talked about is pre-qualification criteria. So you have things you need to itemize. You can pick out of this list, you can add more to it: legal entity, company ownership, so you can know whether it's politician or not. There's exposure in that regard. Financial strength, so they put the audited account in there. Level of insurance cover, technical competence, which may be established through client references, number of contracts and staff resources, the extent of subcontracting, staff safety record, insurance claims, litigation record, industrial relations record, evidence of formalized procedures and systems, quality assurance procedures. You are doing all of these so you can get a sense of the contractor's capability, capacity, and competence. Now, in all of this pre-qualification process, where you put pre-qualification criteria down, you have to have a weighting system, something that gives weight to different criteria for a particular job. If I'm doing a particular job that is very risky, maybe an electrical contractor's job, I'm going to put a lot of weight on safety record, for example. I'm going to put a lot of weight on quality assurance procedures, for example, just to ensure that the person that has higher safety record and quality assurance procedures gets a bigger advantage at the end of the day, so that I don't end up with the wrong contractor that is going to struggle with the job. There's something about supplier list, pre-qualified vendor list, like we call it in most organizations, that we need to be cautious about. The list, sometimes we put together a list of a very small number of people that we have pre-qualified, and then we say they are the ones that will be bidding for our job. It might lead to, of course, it's possible to have a few vendors who are in partnership with you. They understand you, they know what you are trying to achieve, and they are ready to do all it takes to deliver for you, and they are committed long term. But in some cases, they can become manipulative because it's now almost going to create a cartel that can become frustrating for your work. So be very careful how you set up your supplier list to ensure that you have a broad base sufficient enough for real competition to take place. It's only in the atmosphere of real competition that you can get value for the procurement that you're doing. And then after shortlisting, the small number is sent the documents that you have prepared. All of those prepare the request that we talked about and the draft contract, and then they submit their tender, in the format that is specified. When you bid for your job, you could decide to just give to the lowest bidder, but that lowest bidder must be lowest responsive bidder. It's straightforward, based on the lowest bidder who can meet the specified requirements, typically used for reorders, routine and well-defined user requirements. Lowest bidder, when you've done pre-qualification, there's technical understanding, you've done technical pre-qualification already, it's just the price that you're trying to get used as the bidding requirement at this point. It gives the lowest bidder. Now, but there's a point in time where you are doing an RFP, not RFP is request for proposal. You're asking people to bring their own ideas to solve a problem for you. That can be a little bit different, right? Because their solutions might be different from each other. So you want to evaluate, you create an evaluation criteria that describes the various criteria that shows whether they fully understand what you are looking for, understand the problem you're trying to solve, understand the solution you are looking for, have a better way to do it than what you have thought. So if you add those in the evaluation criteria, you are doing a best value for money bid, right? So in essence, you are not necessarily basing your decision on the lowest bidder in this instance. You're not doing just the lowest bidder. You are looking for a bidder that understands exactly what you need, that is fully aligned to your requirements. That's what you are looking for at this stage. So vendors are rated against the floor based on evaluation of technical criteria as well as bid price. So you are doing both commercial and technical evaluation together. The highest technical quality often selected on technical merit, and the final contract price and terms are negotiated in the case of the final option, the unique service. Unique service is what is used for OEM reps and all those companies that have near monopolies in delivering for certain specific equipment or assets. Okay. Okay, I hope you're still seeing my screen and the audio is still good.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's look at contracting. A contract is a tool that defines the kinds of relationships and interactions involved in the procurement of goods and services. It helps to ensure regulatory compliance, reputational risk management, and effective change control. So how does procurement and contract relate? Procurement is a process for reaching contract. Contract is a tool that defines relationship. You use procurement to arrive at contract in a bid to attain a purchasing end. So purchasing is the end product, procurement is the process, and contract is the vehicle. For contract to be valid, there must be mutual agreement, the meeting of minds This meeting of minds can be expressed or implied. Expressed means it is written down that we now agree and we sign. Implied means that it is not written down, but we have agreed in our minds, and by our behavior towards each other, we have an understanding, and that is as well a valid contract. So if you have someone doing a job for you that you've not agreed a fee for, you better stop the person. You better stop the person and ask how much the person will want to be paid at the end. Don't assume that the person is doing it for free. Because if the person finishes that job and bills you, and you now start saying, I did not promise to pay you that amount, you may be really, really wrong. You may be found guilty because your behavior of accepting that person's work without a written down agreement is an implied agreement that you will pay the person whatever the person asks at the end of the day. So be conscious of that. If you want to remove the risk of interpretation of implied agreement, then you must use without prejudice or subject to contract in all your formal interactions. That way, no matter what has been discussed, no matter what has been verbally expressed, until there's a formal contract, there will be no implied agreement. That's what without prejudice or subject to contract will do to such negotiations. There must be consideration, the exchange of something of value. It's called the principle of quid pro quo, give and take. Okay, so by the time we look at other aspects of contract, you realize that this consideration will not necessarily mean exchange of something of the same caliber. If I give and you take, it's seen as an exchange because I can offer and you reject, then we cannot say there's a contract. But if I offer and you accept, an exchange has taken place. Competent parties, whoever signs, must have legal authority and capacity to understand the terms. That's why contract by minors is often seen as not valid. Contract by people who are mentally impaired are often seen as not valid. And that's why even contracts by people who may be under the influence of alcohol or drugs or any other form of intoxication are not competent parties. So those of you who think that you can they sign agreements and have bottles of beer on the table and photographing the sign of the agreement, be careful. Because if somebody comes back tomorrow and uses a photograph of a bottle of beer on the table while he signed the agreement as an evidence that he was not in his right frame of mind because he was under the influence of alcohol, there's evidence that he took alcohol while signing that document. That invalidates the contract. Let's be conscious. There must be a proper subject matter. The contract must have a lawful purpose. What this means is that a contract to do something that is illegal is an invalid contract. But if we cannot agree to steal from a third party and share it equally and come back to report to law that somebody is trying to cheat the other, because that is not a proper subject matter. It's an illegal transaction you are both getting involved in, so the law cannot back you up. You can't call that a proper contract. So it's invalid. There must be mutual right to remedy. Both parties must have an equal right to remedy a breach of terms by the other party. There must also be an agreement to enter into the contract. Parties demonstrate that negotiations have ended and an agreement has been reached when the contract is signed. Types of FM contracts. The most common one is a fixed price contract. Fixed price contract is where you have a full understanding of the scope of work, a full understanding of what needs to be done, a clear description that is not, contestable, and you now say this is the price. Mostly for quotation items, for deliveries, for standardized services, you can have a fixed price contract. For example, if you are providing labor, this is the price of salary, and all the costs that go into it can be fixed, right? But there are certain costs that you cannot fully determine. You cannot even determine how much of it you want, You cannot determine, other fluctuations and variability in the market. You use a cost reimbursement approach. Cost reimbursement contract is when you keep going for submitting quotations and getting approval to deliver. Most FM contracts will have the fixed element, which is the fixed price contract aspect. All the things that are known, clearly defined, they're going to run from month to month at the fixed part. Then the ones that if something breaks, you don't know how many times it will break, how much of the break will incur, how much cost. You put those onto that cost reimbursement contract so that you can be paying, negotiating, agreeing on cost and rates as we go. Then you have the indefinite delivery quantity line item. This is what we call the IDQLI contract. The IDQLI contract is also called the schedule of rate contract in our local parlance, where you have a rate pre-agreed for all materials, different types of materials for a particular service, whether internal service, and then all the installation costs for that particular service, including labor cost per hour, per day, per week, per month. So those rates are agreed to for a period. And the contract is signed that does not entitle you to any money from me. There's a ceiling, it could be a 10 million, 20 million, 100 million contract, right? But that contract does not entitle you to anything. It only entitles you to be the one that I will call upon to come and do a job. It doesn't really give you exclusivity. I could sign that contract with 3 or 4 different contractors, provided we have an agreement on the same rate. So I can call you to come and do replace compressors in 2 air conditioners today. I saw somebody else to come and do a certain filter replacement in another one, because I have an IDQLI contract with you, which tells you these are schedule of rates. This is what you use to bill me when I deliver, when you deliver on the service. This is where you pick your rate from. It saves time, because you are no longer having to do those back and forth quotations and negotiations. And then you can revise it, maybe quarterly, annually, or biannually, or half yearly, just to ensure that you can manage inflation and other fluctuations. Then you have the national buy contract. National buy contract could be any of the fixed cost, fixed price, cost reimbursement, IDQLI. But it's a contract that is administered from one point and delivered across locations in the country. So you could have one contract to maintain furniture across all XYZ banks, right? That contract is in one location in the head office, but you have teams that go around, taking orders to repair whatever goes bad in any bank that needs the service. You sign a job completion or a way bill, delivery bill. You bring that to the head office and you use that to get your payment. It could be any type of contract, but it's centrally operated. The open book contract is a pass-through cost type of contract where you have a client committing to paying you exactly what you spent. They are even requiring you to bring receipts from your suppliers and from the market, and then you have a fixed fee or a percentage, put aside as your own fee for working for the client. That's what is called an open book. Open book in the sense that your inputs are the client's direct cost. The client needs to see all of those. Labor hour, time, and materials are for employing skilled assistants, consultants, companies that provide single task elements. The rate for labor, and then when they incur material cost, you pay that extra. When going into contract, whether as a contractor trying to win a job or as an in-house demand organization FM trying to give out a job, you should follow some of these guidelines. Know when you need a signed piece of paper and when you don't. Contract, you could actually get into some sticky situations when you needed to have a contract outlined and signed and you did not. You just thought you could use an implied approach. It doesn't always work. Know what you are worth before negotiations start. Don't ever feel boxed to accept a contract that you really can't deliver good quality on. Research the client before you begin negotiating with them. Not all clients are the same. Some clients probably don't have the kind of values that you can work with. Some of them have cost, some other organizations to wind down because of their, notorious inability to meet contractual obligations. And in the service industry, we don't sue everybody who contravenes a contract. We're trying to reduce as much as possible the level of litigations that we deploy. So when some organizations tap into that and start frustrating other players in the industry, you need to have a clue as to who have dealt with them before. Are they better off because they had that business? Because if you don't, you may end up, getting into trouble. I had a friend who supplies diesel, and what he basically does is, if you invite him to come and supply diesel, he will look for the other people who have been supplying diesel before, and I'll find out why are they not being called to supply you diesel. By the time he knows that it's because you are owing them that you have not paid, he come back and say, pay me up front before I can deliver diesel to you. Because he knows that if he doesn't do that, he's just going to be lined up as one of the other companies that are being owed, and he may get them into serious trouble. Without knowing that they are avoiding the others they are owing and trying to get you in, you can get into a worse issue. You should negotiate more than money. In fact, money comes in at the tail end of the negotiation. You negotiate all the services, you negotiate the specifications, you negotiate the compliance requirements, you negotiate everything before you even get into money. Because the moment you get into money negotiation and you didn't fully understand what needs to be done, and you finally have an agreement on the money, before you now understand what needs to be done, then the rest assured you made a big mistake and it could be very complicated. Take painting, for example. The painter agrees to paint for you for a certain amount, and then after there's an agreement, before he leaves, you call him and start telling him he has to mask, he has to wear face mask, he has to tape the whole place, he has to sand the walls, he has to do this, he has to do that, and he will look at you and say, look, that's not what I priced for, right? Exactly the point here. And then also be reasonable. Some of us try to over negotiate, a win-lose approach. Something you cannot get for X amount, you want to get it for X minus Y amount from a contractor. You can't get it by yourself at that rate. Even if he's a guru, he knows where to get it cheaper. Don't try to run him out of business. Be reasonable, that's what it means. And part of being reasonable is make sure you have the means to pay before you engage, not after you are engaged, finish, you start struggling to say, oh, something happened, or you can't pay you. It's not a good thing at all. So be reasonable. Listen to the potential client's needs. Sometimes the client is asking you for A, but the client doesn't quite understand how A will solve this problem. So go deeper into the need. What are you trying to achieve? So that when the client says, I need A, and you are understanding exactly what the client wants to do with A, you can tell the client whether A can be the best, or there are options of B, C, and D that the client can consider. But at the end of the day, the client will have to make his final decision. But you must look deeper into what they are trying to get from you, why they are trying to get it, so you can know how to advise. Communicate with care and guard your emotions. Negotiations, contracting is not an emotional business. It's business, and it must be principle-based. Okay. All those burning of bridges, getting angry because of the contract, and causing all kinds of communication fireworks, not necessary. Don't be afraid to negotiate. Don't rush it. It's not about winning or losing. I'll tell you winning everything. Further in contract, they include the provision that any changes made to a contract are ineffective unless made in writing and signed by or on behalf of both parties. This is known as variation clause, and it's intended to prevent informal or inadvertent oral variation. That's just one of the control mechanisms that's possible. There are so many other control mechanisms. Even when they write, a contractor writes to say, I want a variation, you must ensure that there are multiple layers of control, multiple layers of evaluation and feasibility and analysis that are done before that variation can become approved, so that you don't end up seeing a problem that is not really a big problem, create a diversion or a solution to it, that ends up overriding your real intention for going into the contract in the first place. When you have a contract in place, you want to execute the contract. During execution, you have certain principles that you must apply. When you give feedback to contractors continuously and frequently, they tend to improve, they tend to get better. You don't want the relationship to become sour. How you're going to control that communication should already be predetermined and communicated as part of the contracting process. It doesn't help to start creating new rules, new templates, new forms, new reporting, new meeting schedules, all in a bid to complicate the life of your contractors. So whether you're going to have meetings, you're going to do audits with them, you're going to do inspections with them, make sure it's all clear from the onset. What to monitor, the actual progress of work against work schedule, fulfillment of time frames, and adherence to milestones, fulfillment of quality and quality objectives, conformance to specifications, conformance to baseline operational performance metrics, conformance to service quality levels outlined within the contract, conformance to standards, inspections, feedback, reports, audits, observations, call reports, tests, and meetings. What you're basically doing during monitoring is you're not waiting for a failure report at the end. You are trying to prevent a failure report. You are trying to ensure that the contract can be successful. So you put in these regular checks that have been pre-agreed so that you can know exactly that success is possible with the contract that you have in place. And the same thing applies to your cost monitoring. You have to also have a way to monitor the cost of the contract. You know, sometimes you're just placing orders and then you are not following up exactly on how that is affecting your budget. Sometimes you finish ordering and then you realize you can't pay because you don't have a budget for it. Let's be very conscious as purchasing managers, because your overall performance will be tied to your budget performance, and your budget performance is tied to your contract performance. At the end of the contract, you need to have an evaluation of the contractor's performance. Let that not be a secret document that you prepare for yourself. Contractor evaluation is a two-party activity, it's a two-party event. It's not something that's supposed to be a secret to you. So the primary goals of performance evaluation system is to provide equitable measurement of service delivery. All right, it's important that the work produced should be commensurate to the work expected. Develop an evaluation form and identify process performance measures, set guidelines for feedback, create disciplinary and termination procedures, and set an evaluation schedule. All of this should be in the contract, not after the fact. Key to note when setting performance measurements. Before performance measurements can be put in place, output solicitation must be established, what you're trying to get out of it, so that those are the things you're going to measure to determine the purpose of the contractor. A good understanding of the evaluation requirements is essential, all the way from key performance indicators as they relate to strategic objectives. The overall performance of a service provider can be determined by monitoring conformance to regulations and standards, quality-related and performance-related targets for service delivery, expenditure targets, time-related targets, interaction between customers and service provider. So you need to identify the kind of activities that you're going to be monitoring and taking record of with regard to their performance for you to be able to come up with a proper appraisal. And this is something that they will be part of. It's a process that they must be part of. One of the things you are doing in contracting is when we looked at procurement, we said you contribute your scope of the problem, your scope of work, your specification of the work, all of that into the procurement process. You can do this by using an input approach or an output approach. In the input specification approach, you set out in detail the exact services to be performed by the contractor in a prescriptive fashion. So it means who can work, what they can do, how they will do it, when they will do it, that's basically what materials they will use and so on. In output, you are no longer looking at the contractor on its end, you're looking at yourself. You're not describing how the contractor is going to achieve the performance standard you're setting. it will come up with its own, but you are looking at yourself and telling yourself, these are the things I own, these are the things, my current situation, these are the things I expect. This is the kind of output I expect to see. To take cleaning, for example, I want to see no dirt, no dust, no stains, no cobweb. That's what I'll describe. So I'll take an asset item and say, your job will include cleaning these toilets. They're all supposed to be white. I don't want to see any stain streaks or whatever on them. And so you list all of those out. That becomes what you are checking for. So when you bring an invoice to come and get paid, you are looking first at what they have done based on what you are getting out of it, right? Now, input specifications are actually easier to do because most vendors will submit input specifications, so you can compare A, B, C. Sometimes it also makes your life less complicated, just telling them bring 5 cleaners, get them uniforms, get them chemicals and equipment, and so on and so forth. Whereas you can focus more on getting your own asset registered, doing your operation assessment, coming up with your key performance indicators for that service, and drawing up service level agreements that you can use to monitor what you will get from it. There's a lot of front end work that will take place in the service specification approach. Because if you are able to do that in an output fashion, you are focusing on exactly what you get. So whatever you pay for service, it will be tied to what you are getting for that service. Only what you are getting for that service. So your service level agreement is that agreement that you prepare and you provide to procurement and legal when they're going into contracting with third-party vendors. But the SLA should already be in place between the SM department and the client organization or demand organization. The management and building users already have given you a service level agreement because you are the SM, you are a service provider to the organization. And as a service provider to the organization, you must ensure that you have an SLA with the organization, even though you are an internal staff. It is based on those specifications. For example, if you want to give a cleaning contractor a service level, you want to include something like the time you should come and work. Now, if that contractor, you agree with him that you should come and work by 8 o'clock, and that's the time when important work is taking place in your organization, and the cleaners are not going to disrupt that important work because it's their time to work. What is done? The joint there is you, the FM, did not ask the users of your facility, we will provide cleaning. How do you want it? When do you want it? Right? How much of it do you need? You put all of those ones down at the service level with them, agreed, signed up to, before you now translate that into what you give to your service provider. So in the SLA, we include the objective of the service provision, the service objective, business objective, detailed description of the deliverables and scope, the performance standard the customer expects, an ongoing reporting mechanism. We talked about not springing up surprise reporting tools, provide mechanism for penalty and compensation, and provide a mechanism for review and change to the service levels over the course of the contract. These are built into an SLA, and you ensure that this is understood by the service provider before you sign that contract, so that by the time you start implementing it, there will be no argument. Contracting brings up a lot of opportunities for fraud. What is fraud? An intentional deception made to gain an advantage or damage an individual. Being affected by the fraud because illegal acts are being performed, deceit, concealment, violations to obtain money, property, or service, avoid payment or loss of service, secure personal or business advantage, always at the detriment of, in most cases, the organization that you are serving. It could come in form of collusion, where people exchange information secretly that shouldn't be exchanged, and then they end up, subverting a process that's supposed to be free and fair. Price fixing mostly happens among vendors when they know that they are the ones bidding, and they formed a system that enables them to create a what would be called a price range that cannot be exceeded. Sometimes the price is even standardized between the vendors, therefore reducing the value you can get from competing against one another. Whose phone is, whose device is not muted? Kindly mute. We'll look at non-competitive pricing, similar to price fixing, where you get at the end of the day, the lowest bidder is still not the fair bid. Payment for work not carried out during execution, where you overpay and the vendor gets the unfair advantage, and in some cases it's even unable to deliver on the service because it has gotten a lot of advantage over your organization. And then cartels, where vendors or potential vendors form themselves into a monopoly where they can control the demand organization or mutuals buying their services. These are all things that create opportunities for fraud in contracting. Let's look at common alternate dispute resolution. So when you have conflicts in contracts, those conflicts need to be reviewed, resolved. You cannot hope to not have a conflict, right? Even though you plan not to have a conflict, sometimes you may have some conflict. So if a conflict is constructive, is work-related, technical issue, easy to resolve, because people can usually agree when it's the reason. But if the conflict is dysfunctional, personalized, people become antagonistic of each other, those are more difficult and intense conflicts to resolve. But in all, even with the clear specifications we put in our SLA, we should also define one or more alternative dispute resolution techniques in our contract, like management escalation that provides for management on both parties to meet on the matter and discuss. So they can easily find solutions by just discussing it. Mediation is a method in which the parties reach a voluntary settlement with the help of a skilled facilitator. Usually some industries will have certain experts, people who are very experienced in industry that can take a look at the matter and give an objective decision that will be binding or not binding. Arbitration is the submission of a dispute to one or more qualified and impartial persons for a final and binding decision. Arbitrators are quite legal. They're not really law courts, but it's a very formal process. And when the results are given, it's often binding. Even when you go out to court to challenge a decision that has been taken by arbitrators, the judges will first look into what that decision is and what was considered and the issues that were looked into. And in many cases, the judges will mostly just take the arbitration report and pass it as their judgment and close the matter. Every contract will need to be closed out. Contracts can expire, the tenure has ended. Contracts can run out of its budget and financial ceiling of cost availability. It still doesn't mean that the contract has been closed out. There has to be a proper closeout. The contract closeout occurs when a contract has met all the terms of the contract, all administrative actions have been completed, all disputes settled, final payment has been made. This is the only time you can now say, let's put out a checklist for checking and signing off that this contract can now be closed. Issue interim contract completion statement, ensure the position of certified material is completed contract audit, ensure prime contractor has settled subcontract, complete price revision, review and submit contractor's final invoice and voucher, ensure final voucher has been paid, complete contract funds review, and deobligate excess funds that we commit, remove all committed funds to that contract back to the organization. At this point, you can now say, let's consider the contract for closure. So there's a signature on it that says this contract is now closed. What that does for us as property managers is that contract cannot be resisted for as a live contract anymore, cannot be used to make a claim anymore, because we are both signed that we have all been settled, all issues have been done, all documentation has been concluded, audit has been done, and both parties are now satisfied. Then both parties sign. That closes the contract. If a contract is not closed, it doesn't matter whether it's expired or not, the contract is still alive. So we must create this as a practice so that we can, always close out contracts, so we don't have issues that can crop up in the future on the same contract. All right. Questions? All right, let's hear from Hafiz. Hafiz, you can go ahead and ask the question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Thank you for the lecture, sir. My questions are three, sir. The first one has to do with when you were mentioning, when we were running us through the process of contract elements and the validity. That's why I put it down here. Now, out of those points you gave us were mutual agreements, consideration, competence, and the last one is agreements to enter contract. Now, there's a bit of confusion for me there, sir. The number one, which is mutual agreements, and the last one, agreements to enter contract. What is the difference, sir?
Okay.
That's one, sir.
Okay. Can I take them as they come? Because I don't have a means of accumulating them. I'll answer the first one. You can ask the next one. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. So the first one simply says that both parties have agreed to go into contract, right? And the clear explanation there is that this agreement can happen implied or express, which means we can have it signed or we can imply by our behavior to each other. Now, in that last one is trying to take care of that implied approach. You know that the first one opens up a contract can be implied, right? Now, if a contract is implied and we do not have a agreement to go into contract, that implied can be a problem. So there must be something that we have done that can lead to implied contract. So in essence, if we're still talking and you start delivering and I don't stop you, that's what the last one is trying to say.
Okay.
The first one says both of us agree for you to start acting. But in the last one person can agree with himself and start acting, but the second person has the responsibility to stop him. If he keeps quiet, it's taking that he has accepted the contract.
Okay, sir. Still confusing.
So they are similar to a large extent, but the last one just takes care of that implied approach to contracting.
Sir, it's still confusing. Or let me say, it's not confusing, but perhaps I'm having a conflict of knowledge here, sir. And I want to bring it to a bit of knowledge I have in law, in contracting.
Yeah.
So can we say that in law, in contract, you have what is called offer, acceptance, intention to go into contract, and consideration.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this one you're saying now, you're giving us now as looking at it from the point of view of being an intention to contract. Am I still in line? Because if we intend to enter a contract and I continue to act, and the second party is telling me that, come, that thing you said, that we said, we can't go on. So it means that there's no contract. but already one party has started taking action. Am I making a point?
Written. You are perfectly making a good point.
What I'm looking at is
that is written and approved or signed to, right? And one party starts acting, it's a valid contract.
Okay. Okay, I'll take it as explained, sir. Thank you, sir.
You have another question?
Yes, my second question now, sir, is when we're talking about contract negotiations, sir, you listed some points there, and I was thinking, at those points, are they cast in stone, or they are just ideas, or they can be expanded more than what you have given us, sir?
Definitely, they're just ideas. In fact, there is no list in any of the materials that we have produced that is exclusive. We get new ideas and updates regularly, and there's usually evolution of ideas. Circumstances will warrant you to customize those ideas, add or delete some that are not applicable to you. Definitely, they are not cast in stone.
Okay, all right, sir. Then my last question, sir, is on SLA.
Yes.
Which of the parties prepares the SLA? And then is the SLA document, is it can we call it a legally binded document between both parties when it comes to contracting?
Yes, the SLA is a full contract. It's called service level agreement. It's a full contract, a binding. Did you get that?
No, I didn't get you clearly, sir.
The SLA is a binding contract.
Okay.
It is called service level agreement because it's an agreement that's signed by both parties.
Okay, so who prepares it out of the two parties?
The buyer.
The buyer.
Yes. The buyer.
This case,
the FM.
In this case, the FM.
Yes. The FM prepares SLA. The reason is that the objective of the service they are trying to buy, you are the one that can write it down. You know what you need as an organization. The problems you are trying to solve with it, you are the one that knows it. The scope of what will solve the problem, in case of an ITP, you are the one that can write it down. If you are even asking for an RFP, where people can give you ideas, you should be able to discuss the issues that need to be resolved clearly so that people can give you ideas. When they do give you ideas and you accept any of the contracts, any of the proposals as what you want to go with, you carry that into a proper contract document that you prepare. You will bring in all your organization policies and procedures into it. You put in all the terms, general terms and specific conditions into it, right? To form your SLA. The contractor will review it, can negotiate items within it. For example, you probably want to have a daily meeting with the contractor as a reporting mechanism. Because I can say that it's too expensive to have a daily meeting. That's micromanagement. Give me at least a weekly meeting. They can negotiate terms and then you modify. But the person who is in charge of the SLA is you, the in-house FM.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, I thought I saw another hand up before doing have this office comments. Another hand was up. Okay, nobody else. All right, so that's our class for today. Please, there's an assignment or an assessment that goes with this class. Kindly complete it today and turn it in so that you will not have to do it tomorrow. See you again on Friday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.